Greetings everyone. Today we are from Group 3 and we're going to be discussing about the impact of plastic waste towards climate change. My name is Michelle Caroline.
My name is Kirin Han.
And my name is Ray Anderson.
Okay, if we go to the first slide, why are we talking about plastic waste and climate change? Let's dive deeper into the background of this topic. If we see in the next slide, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, were launched by the United Nations in 2015. There are 17 global goals in total, all designed to help improve the world by 2030. These goals aim to meet our present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. Today, we're focusing specifically on Goal 13, which calls us to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. The goal is incredibly important, especially when we consider the evidence that's all around us. Since the pre-industrial era, around 1850 to 1900s, Earth's temperature has increased by 1.2 Celsius. Now, that might not sound like much, but in climate science, that's actually very significant. In fact, in 2023, it was recorded as the warmest year ever. This should be a wake-up call for all of us. If you look at the diagram below, you'll see how plastic waste contributes to the crisis. It begins with plastic waste, which leads to carbon emissions during its production and disposal. These emissions trap sunlight in our atmosphere, kind of like putting a thick blanket around the Earth, leading to global warming and eventually climate change. So, in short, what seems like a small piece of trash can have a massive impact on the planet, and that's why we're talking about this today. Now that we've understood the bigger picture, let's take a closer look in the next slide of one of the root causes of climate change, that is plastic waste. According to a 2023 World Bank report, Indonesia is the fifth largest contributor to plastic waste in the world. We produce about 65.2 million tons of plastic waste every year. That's a staggering amount. But how does exactly plastic waste connect to climate change? Well, plastic is made from fossil fuel. The burning and refining of these fuels release harmful greenhouse gases, or GHG, into the atmosphere. These gases trap heat and contribute significantly to global warming. Back in 2019, the United Nations reported that plastic alone was responsible for producing 1.8 billion tons of GHG. Even more alarming, this number is expected to triple by 2060 if demand continues to rise. So it's pretty clear. Plastic pollution isn't just about trash in the ocean, it's a major driver of climate change, and it's something we urgently need to address, especially here in Indonesia. Now, if we go to the next slide, to mitigate this issue, we're going to be talking about something super simple but also super powerful. That is, how the 4R principle can help us reduce waste and live more sustainably. The 4R stands for reduce, reuse, recycle, and replace. The 4R approach is a practical guide we can all follow to lessen our environmental impact. It helps us cut down waste, use resources wisely, and make more sustainable choices whether we're at home, in school, or anywhere else. Let's dive into what each one means and how we can easily apply them in our daily lives. The first R is reduce. This means using less. Less stuff, less energy, and fewer resources. Instead of buying things we don't really need, we can make conscious choices to minimize consumption. For example, avoid overbuying when you shop. It not only saves you money, but also reduces packaging waste. Also, something as simple as turning off the lights when you're not using them helps save energy and reduce your carbon footprint. Reducing is about preventing waste before it's even created. Next, we have reuse. This is all about finding new life for old items instead of throwing them away. Have old clothes lying around? Turn them into rags for cleaning. Or if you have leftover water from missing vegetables, why not reuse it to water your plants? It's a small mindset shift from throwing things into thinking, what else can and how can I use this? And it makes a huge difference. Now, if we go to the next slide, we're going to be learning about the two other R's, which is recycle and also replace. Sometimes we can't avoid waste, but we can still make sure it doesn't go to waste. Recycling means processing used materials so that they can become new products. For instance, food scraps can be composted and plastic bottles can be recycled into bags or other products. The key here is proper sorting, making sure that waste goes into the right bin so that it can be recycled efficiently. Lastly, we also have replace. This means switching out harmful, unsustainable products for ones that are better for the planet. For example, instead of using single-use plastic straws, we can use stainless steel ones or switch from disposable batteries to rechargeable ones. It's all about choosing alternatives that are reusable, renewable, and eco-friendly.
Next, we will discuss about what can 4R do to mitigate the risk of climate change. So the main purpose of implementing the 4Rs is to reduce the production of greenhouse gas emissions. By doing the 4R, we can make the world a better place. And there are three ways of 4R to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The first one is decreasing water and land pollution. This can help to mitigate the risk and minimize the risk of climate change because plastic waste dominate the total amount of garbage that ended in the natural environment. For about 33% of them are plastic waste. Moreover, a plastic waste that end up in the natural environment can produce dangerous greenhouse gas emissions. Plastic that get contact with sunlight or heat can produce methane and ethylene, and those substances can trap the heat in the atmosphere and can danger the living creatures like animal and living plants on a water and land environment. Moreover, as stated by the United Nations, the water can absorb around 23% of the total carbon dioxide from human activities, and the land environment contains plants that can absorb most of the carbon dioxide emissions that are produced by human activities. The second one is decreasing fossil fuel consumption. So basically, plastic depends a lot on fossil fuel. About 93% until 99% of plastic components are made from fossil materials. This number shows that to make a plastic product, it requires to consume a lot of fossil fuel. And manufacturing activities of plastic products release massive amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. There are three major emissions that resulted from fossil fuel consumption. The first one is carbon dioxide that can be produced through extraction, transporting, refining, and manufacturing processes. The second one is methane that can be produced through extraction and transport process. And the last one is nitrous oxide that can be produced through chemical processes. By implementing the 4R, we can mitigate the risk of climate change in the world by reducing the usage of plastic materials, while maybe not quite significant, but we can mitigate the production of plastic, leading to less fossil extraction. By reusing single-use plastic materials, we can reduce the amount of plastic production and foil manufacturing processes. By recycling plastic materials, we can lessen the usage of fossil and save up 80% energy compared to making new plastic. And lastly, by replacing plastic, we can shift the human habit from using fossil-based plastics into other alternatives materials that promote renewable and sustainable materials. And the last way is promote energy saving based on the report done by Cambridge to make a 1 kilogram new PET bottle. It consumes approximately 8.42 megajoule of energy. On the other hand, recycling PET bottle can save about 30 until 80% of energy. This number counted from transporting, washing, shredding, melting, and other recycling protocols that align with the recycling programs. Additionally, by doing reuse and replace of plastic usage, we can also mitigate the emissions that were produced from the production of PET bottles. Reusing a plastic bottle can help to mitigate climate change because it helps to extend the usage of plastic materials, leading to a decrease of need for a new plastic product and waste. By replacing single-use plastic bottles, we can also mitigate climate change by reducing the dependence of plastic materials. We can replace single-use plastic bottles with reusable tumblers. By doing this 4 Rs, we can help to reduce the energy usage, leading to producing lower gas emissions.
So, to overcome climate change, there are many actions we can do, not only from ourselves, but from everyone. First of all, from the largest group in the society, the community. In the community, we can do socialization, like right now we're doing, educating what is climate change, the effect to our earth, how we address it, and so on. Then waste management. In management, we can sort the trash into three types. The first one is organic waste. It's a waste made from plant and animal, such as food waste. Second is non-organic waste. It is a waste that are not from living organism, such as plastic. And the third is hazardous waste. It's a waste that poses a potential threat to human health or the environment. A waste falls into this category if the waste is toxic, reactive, flammable, or corrosive, such as batteries. Last is support environmentally friendly policies. Then, in the next slide, there are some actions that can be taken by companies and industries. The first one is using renewable energy, such as solar energy. Then, implementing energy efficiency, reduce the waste production, then implementing sustainability policy. Then from the government can create environment policies or regulations. For example, in Indonesia, Law number 32 of 2009 on environmental protection and management. Then invest in renewable energy, promoting green research and innovation, such as electric vehicles, waste to energy technology, green buildings, and eco materials. Last is international agreement, such as Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement is a legally binding international treaty on climate change, adopted in 2015, aiming to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, with a goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And lastly, in the next slide, is actions that can be done individually. We can use renewable energy, reduce plastic waste, conserve energy, for example, turning off the light when it's not in use, conserve water, walk, cycle, or take public transportation to reduce air pollution, then reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle.
So the last discussion is about challenges in implementing the 4R. So there are 6 major challenges that usually individuals or companies might face. The first one is additional cost. Implementing 4R initiatives most of the time will require us to do financial investments on infrastructure, technology, or maybe additional labor for some companies. These factors can become a barrier that hinders both individuals and maybe companies to implement these initiatives. The second one is lack of awareness. Lack of awareness might be the most significant and hardest challenge to face regarding the implementation of 4R. Lack of awareness can come from both individuals and companies itself. To start the 4R implementation, parties need to start from their awareness first. But this awareness of reducing, reusing, recycling, and replacing plastic waste can sometimes be forgotten because many business will prioritize profit over environmental protection. The third challenge is poor implementation of laws. A weak regulation enforcement provided by legal bodies who have authority like the government can be one challenge to implement for our initiatives. The lack of implementation of strict regulations can slowly affect individuals and even companies to overlook the condition of the nearby environment. Without strict regulations, individuals and companies may neglect for our initiatives. People will think that it is fine not to do these initiatives, considering that it is still legal and not violate the standards given by the regulations. The fourth one is market price challenges. Implementing 4R on companies might make them experience disadvantage and losing the competitive advantage that they have. Business companies are usually tend to target high profit with lower cost. But by implementing the 4R initiatives on their manufacturing process, they need to spend more cost and definitely will require them to sell the products with higher cost. The fifth challenge is the massive amount of waste. When a company wants to implement the 4R methods, especially recycling, they might face a hard time to process the massive amounts of plastic waste in the landfills. Due to this challenge, while they could still do recycling programs, but processing large amounts of waste will take time and resources. And the last challenge is lack of infrastructure. In many countries, especially developing ones, they will experience the lack of infrastructure to implement the 4R programs. In some countries, it seems hard to implement reduce and replace methods on plastic waste, considering that they don't have other alternative resources or alternatives things that are more cheaper than plastic. Some countries might also experience lack of legal, proper, and advanced waste collection and sorting system to manage plastic waste. And lastly, it is possible that the price of technology in certain countries cost much higher compared to other countries. These aspects can become a challenge for countries that want to implement 4R, even though they have a good intention on it.
In conclusion, the earth is getting hotter, and one of the major contributors is plastic waste. A lot of this plastic comes from burning fossil fuels, which releases carbon into the atmosphere and accelerates global warming. This makes climate change worse and puts our future at risk. Indonesia, where we're based, plays a significant role in this issue. We're actually the fifth largest producer of plastic waste in the world, as we've stated before, generating over 65 million tons of waste every year. That's a very huge amount. But here's the good news. We can do something about it. The 4R principles of reduce, reuse, recycle, and replace gives us simple but effective ways to tackle this problem. They help us lower waste, protect the environment, and make better choices for the planet. In the end, using the 4R mechanisms isn't just a good idea, it's crucial for building a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable future. Now, if we go to the next slide. Are you ready to test your knowledge? We prepared a quizzes that you can do to reinforce your knowledge regarding the material. If you're interested, you can head on the quizzes link in the bio. Now, on to the next slide. Thank you so much for watching. If you feel that this video is helpful, make sure to drop a like and comment on what you've learned so far. Remember, protect our home, celebrate Earth every day. Thank you so much again and see you on the next video.